Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, we look at that in a perfectly balanced side. You've got someone who can bowl some overs, so Mitch becomes an attractive commodity on a wicket, unlike probably Adelaide and Perth, which has been, we've known would be an even contest actually. So this one, although it looks like there's some grass on the wicket, there's a bit of moisture in it. We also know the history of it, so our fast bowlers have been lucky. We've bowled less overs than the Indian bowlers at the moment, particularly Bumrah, and that's an important part of the series. The more we can look after those guys, the better. So it'll come down to that decision. You're spot on. We haven't made that decision yet, though. With the schedule, international schedulers now, you're always looking at this test, but you're always looking ahead. We talk about the World Cup and we talk about the Ashes, and then we talk about the 2 tests against Sri Lanka. We're always looking at how we try and manage it. But in this, since I've been coach, we've talked about how important this series is, Australia versus India. We know how determined India are to win this series. There's no denying that. You can see it in their body language, the way they're playing. So in this instance, this is the only test we're thinking about. But we're always aware that there's 2 back-to-back test matches, which is tough. I hope he gets him out 11 times in the next. That's 11 by the end of this series, because we know Virat's. I mean, he's at another level. The way that 100 in the first innings, that is an unbelievable test match innings. So he's a great player. The great bowlers. So to answer the second part of your question, the great bowlers get out the great batsmen. That's why they're great. It's the same as the great players stand up under pressure. We've seen it with Virat, especially in that first innings. I mean, that's why they're called great players. It's actually the message I sent to the boys at the end of day 3, I reckon, the first test. They're great players for a reason, because they stand up under pressure. He does that. Nathan Lyon's doing it at the moment. This is a massive series. He's standing up for us. So he's turned into he is literally I mentioned he's a world-class bowler, and it's great to have him in there. And the other thing about him is there's some real confidence about him. He's talking in the change room. He's showing great leadership. He hasn't got a title at the moment, but shows great leadership. And his fielding, he's like a gazelle in the field. So, he's nice and fit. He's playing well. He seems really settled off the field, and he's having a big impact on this series, isn't he? Yeah, they're very close, no doubt about that. It's a bit like the backmen in footy, in AFL footy. They're a really closely knit group, and they all of them admit at the moment they haven't quite nailed it yet this series. So that's exciting. I think you saw it in the Ashes last year, where there was times where they were all over England because they functioned so well. Nathan Lyon is literally world class the way he's going about his business. He's been so good to have in the team. And the other 3, we're seeing great signs, and there's times when they've bowled worse and got more wickets, but I'm really excited, whether it's in this test match or the Sydney test matches or whenever, when those guys bowl as that unit, that's a really positive. I can't wait to see that. I know one of his goals is to become the best number 8 in the world. It actually is. So, and for those, we've seen it with Ashwin in the past for India. We've seen really good teams, seen Wokes in a sense for their really important runs. So if he keeps working on his batting like he is, I know he's done some work on his batting, did some work with Mark O'Neill when that Shield game was on in Perth that they missed out on. So he's working hard on it. He has a crack, doesn't he? He bowls well, he fields well, he bats well, he's in all the commercials. It's not a bad life, is it? But he's doing really well. And we know how important those runs are in all forms of the game. Promotion was a bit like having Adam Gilchrist come in at 7. It breaks the heart of the opposition. If Pat Cummins can make runs at number 8, that's psychologically that's important. We know what the expectations are, and the players know that. I thought it was really good. I love that. I love watching that. We saw a bit of Aussie humour. We talk about, call it sledging or banter, call it what you like, but there's a bit of humour to it, and we pride ourselves on that. Usually when in the great days I've seen in Australian cricket, that's all it is. It's so much fun. That's why when people tell me, there can't be any speaking out on the ground, I said, mate, it make it boring. It's like playing on flat wicket. It's actually funny, and there's some good humour. I thought Marcus Harris is as cheeky as they come, but he was a bit of humour about it, and that's what we pride ourselves. It doesn't need to be angry, it doesn't need to be abusive, but when there's that humour and there's a bit of, but we've got to stand up for ourselves. That's really important. That's the Australian way of doing things as well. We can't, we've got to stand up for ourselves. And I thought the way Tim did, I'm that impressed with Tim Payne's captaincy. I've said it from day one. I was blessed in WA to have Adam Voges and Simon Kadich. Now I'm blessed to have Tim Payne. I mean, he's really shows the best wicket-keeper in the world. He's on top of his game in his wicket-keeping. We've seen it in the past that after the last Test match, Steve Warren, Ricky Ponting, Alan Border, Michael Clarke, even Mark Taylor, they were on top of their game. And it was really important. Well, Tim Payne's on top of his game as the best wicket-keeper in the world, so that gives him great confidence.